um, right. Maybe we can start now. Okay. Right. Okay. So I will. It's 2 minutes past 6. Thank you so much for everyone who came to this talk. It's always a little bit strange to give a talk in the Zoom because I can see only myself and 2 others and don't see other people. So anyway, I hope we are able to meet up in some time and to be able to see the real each other in real, real life. So this today we in this talk we are going to talk about the Minari, the film Minari, which received recently a lot of media attention, and particularly in this film, it's really lovely film, which shows kind of makes us to think about a lot of questions about what it the life their life kind of this family, Korean American family in America, how we define the foreignness in Korean film and how there are many kind of crucial cultural issues and how they actually sort of the cultural hybridity expressed through this film. So we will talk about this more throughout this film, and we show you some interesting video clips throughout this talk. But at this talk, it's a talk I'm giving jointly with Loli Kim, and Frank will be so kindly help us to play the videos and host this this talk. Thank you both. And shall we go to the next slide, please? So yeah, so Minari, I don't know whether you have heard about the word Minari. Minari is a herb that Koreans often use for banchan, for side dish. But it's also in this film you will see why it's called Minari. We'll talk about somehow the synopsis context of this film, and also this film shows a lot of interesting thing, as I said, about cultural hybridity or linguistic hybridity. Korean American family living in America, we show how Koreanness and Americanness using both languages and above show kind of unfold their lives, which is so much close to, I think, the life we live now, sort of all very much hybrids and mingled, interacting with each other. And talk a little bit about, very briefly, about sort of the notion of translanguaging, and then also their Confucian values, how sort of Korean values, again, very traditional Korean values are sort of interpreted within this particular context. And then also talk about how different intergenerational, intercultural, cross-cultural talk, communication happen in this film. And not only the language itself, we will talk about, also the gesture or non-verbal items, non-verbal languages too. So next slide, please. Lori, would you be able to tell us a little bit about the background of this film?
Yeah, of course. Hello, 안녕하세요. So Minari, to elaborate on what Dr. Kiaer said, is Lee Isaac Chung's semi-autobiographical Korean-American drama film, which tells the story of a Korean-American immigrant family, the Yi family, living in the US in the 1980s, who moved to Arkansas to grow Korean produce in the hope of self-employment, self-sufficiency, and the improvement of their quality of life in the US. The film won multiple awards, including the Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film, with Yoon Yuh-jung winning both the BAFTA and Academy Award for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and Alan S. Kim, who plays the Yi's son David, winning the Critics' Choice Award for Best Young Performer. The film provides an opportunity to observe Korean and Korean Americans, how they interact together and how they interact with Koreans. And it's this interaction that plays a key role in illustrating the main theme of the film, which is the difficulties faced by this Korean immigrant family as they strive to make a good life for themselves in the US. So the first generation faced the shock of American culture, while the second generation faced the shock of Korean culture when they meet their Korean family, and also have to deal with the conflicting emotions that arise when navigating between Korean culture and the Korean culture of the parents and the American culture that they've been raised in. Thanks, Dr. Kiaer.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I forgot to introduce myself then. So my name is Jieun Kiaer, and I am a professor in Korean linguistics at Oxford University. Sorry that I should have done it at the beginning of the talk. But anyway, so this is the Minari. Yeah, but we will like look at, we will watch some of the video clips and we'll discuss some kind of issues that very much the Minari, what Minari film talks to us, the more fundamental issues around us. So maybe next slide, please. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion before even Minari got real media attention, that whether Minari is a Korean film or American film, is an English film or a foreign film. Because they speak a lot of Korean, as we will watch some of the clips, but then they're Koreans. They use Korean, American language, but also they have Korean value system, but they're living in America, and also they speak English as well. So how do we define their life? Korean, or they're Korean American, but it's Korean or American? It's kind of like somehow at the intersection between the two, and this is a very interesting point and kind of relevant to most of our lives, that because we also have different cultural heritage and backgrounds. And so this is kind of the beginning of the first question we had was kind of the language, how they kind of navigate not only language but life in general as an immigrant, but between the two cultures or beyond the two cultures and more. And maybe we will, next slide, please. So yeah, there's like really discussion and more discussion and by different film directors and people, like what actually does it mean? Where are you really from? Many people ask, where are you from? And I mean, I'm asked this question a lot of time, where are you from? And I know that people want me to say I'm from Korea. Well, actually, I lived in this country 20 years, so I can say, well, I'm from London or I'm from Oxford. This is what I would like to say, but very often, people kind of think about more like sort of like the heritage, where you really, and people ask me, where are you really from? Then I'm saying I'm from South Korea. So kind of like really, it kind of tells us kind of what it means, what this really question means, what are you from? This film, is it again like American film or is English, Korean film? Because the Korean American, how do you define immigrants' life in general? How do you define kind of life in America in general? So it brings a lot of questions, and there were many meaningful questions raised by different directors and media related to the issue. But and maybe we will go to the next slide. And this maybe Frank, would you be able to play the video, please?
Yeah, Chung Yoon from Minari.
Well, hello, Britain. Hello. I'm Korean actress Yoon Yuh-jung, and I don't know how to say. I'm very honored to be nominated. I'm the winner now. First expression, I'd like to express my deep condolence for your Duke of Edinburgh, and thank you so much for this award. Every award is meaningful, but this one, especially recognized by British people, known as very snobbish people, and they approve me as a good actor. So I'm very, very privileged and happy. And thank you so much. Thank you for the voter who voted me. Thank you very much, BAFTA, very much.
She talked about this snobbish English people, and this, many media picked up this point and made a joke about her. But it's really interesting, kind of her language, her English that she used in here, very much similar to the language that you also will hear from the film itself and by her. So not like snobbish. She talked about snobbish English, but the BBC actually kind of said about this interview that she spoke in broken English. So, you know, I mean, when I read this article, like describing BBC, describing her English as broken English, I felt like, how do we define broken English? How do we say this one's English is broken, and so on? I mean, I don't know, like when you hear this interview, you feel like, you know, it's very humorous. So it's again like, how do we define what is humorous, and how do we define this is broken, and what is good English, what is bad English? She kind of brings a lot of also questions that we have for the film itself, but she also her interview showed that so reveals the question we have. And next slide, please. And another interview that she I don't know, so her speech, but shall we?
Mr. Brad Pitt, finally. Nice to meet you. Where were you while we were filming in Tulsa? It's very honored to meet you. As you know, I'm from Korea, and actually my name is Yoon, and most of European people call me Young, and some of them call me Yuh-jung. But tonight, you are all forgiven. I cannot believe I'm here. Well, that's okay. Let me pull myself together. Okay. Thank you for the tremendous thanks to the Academy members who voted for me. And next speech, okay, they usually say, okay, thank you for the wonderful Minari family. Stephen, Isaac, Yeri, and Noel, Allen. We became a family. And most of all, above all, Lee Isaac Chung. Without him, I couldn't be here tonight. He was our captain and my director. So thanks to you, tremendous thanks to you. And I'd like to thank to, well, see, I don't believe in competition. How can I win Glenn Close, win over Glenn Close? I've been watching her so many performances. So this is just all the nominees, 5 nominees. We are the winner for the different movie, we play the different role. So we cannot compete each other. Tonight I'm here is just, I have just a little bit luck, I think. Maybe I'm luckier than you. And also maybe it's American hospitality for the Korean actor. I'm not sure. But anyway, thank you so much. And I'd like to thank to my 2 boys who made me go out and work. So, beloved son, all and Noel, this is the result because mommy worked so hard. And I'd like to dedicate this award for my first director, Kim Ki-young, who was very genius director. I made a movie together with him, first movie. I think he would be very happy if he's still alive. Thank you very much. Tremendous thank you for everybody. Thank you.
This is very humorous, also very moving. She's same age with my mom, and like I can't imagine her standing in front of Oscar and giving a speech like this. But again, like it doesn't matter whether her English is so-called perfect or not. You can, we understand what she meant, and we also felt her genuine, heart and everything. So we kind of moved. So, but anyway, again, this 2 speech also reflects so much things that the Minari wants to talk about. So I thought it would be relevant to listen to her speech. So yeah, can we go to the next slide, please? One more thing, actually, what she talked about her name, Young, and romanizing Korean names is always very difficult. And Yo is one of the most difficult syllables, Yo. how do we do Yo and Jung? And or as she said, some people call Yo Jung or Yo Young, or all different. Romanization itself is really challenging. Also, she is known as Yo Jung Yoon, so first name and then second name. But then I don't know whether you remember Bong Joon-ho, the director of Parasite, last year, which we were very lucky for Korean film. We got two great films in a row. But Bong Joon-ho is always known as not Junho Bong, but Bong Joon-ho, like family name, and then her, and then his first name. So in a way, in the past, it was very much like we, kind of Asian names or Korean names had to sort of anglicize in a way, first name and then second name. We had to kind of romanize everything more like naturalized based on how it suits to more English ears or like English speaking words. But I think now it's becoming much more diverse. The diversity, the needs for diversity is growing. So, now you have Yoon Yuh-jung, but also you have Bong Joon-ho. So the order could have, different ordering or pronunciation. So what we can see is that like more things that in the past that we kind of didn't pay attention become visible. And again, this Minari also is showing us about the things that we didn't really pay attention in the past, but shows us the diversity, in a way, diversity of our life, but diversity of this Korean American family living in America. So kind of the one thing that I want to talk about in this talk is about translanguaging. I'm not going to give you a very theoretical background of translanguaging, but it's kind of showing that we're not like living with one language, one culture, but we are kind of crossing the borders of language and culture all the time. So any of you living here, listening to this talk, will agree this point that we can't just say that I'm speaking one language and living in one culture. A lot of us have different background or encounter different cultural language all the time. So it's kind of translanguaging, like speaking languaging beyond the borders, borderless speaking, borderless within the language and culture is so much a norm. And particularly this is the case for the immigrant families who actually had another cultural heritage, but had to live in another place. So in a way, what we can see from this Minari film is again, like, their language itself, it's not like completely Korean or completely American, but they always kind of go beyond the borders and cross the borders and innovate something that's not there for other people, but they themselves innovate things for them and find their unique identity through this practice. Next slide, please. So this, the notion of translanguaging, what I said, is kind of allows us to be able to speak. It puts a person's set of linguistic components into a single semiotic repertoire that does not require switching from one to the other, but actually it kind of allows individuals to choose and assemble semiotic resources from bodies of repertoires unhindered by social political boundaries. So as I said, I'm not speaking Korean at one point and then going to English, but it's kind of my language, my life, and my language itself is combination of Korean and English and other languages too. And I think this is kind of becoming more and more practice for everybody's life and in contemporary society. And so it's not like just simply switching, but it's like my life itself is combination of language and cultures from my background, but also where I live. So this kind of, again, Minari shows this very beautifully. Next slide, please. And kind of, again, this is about space, but what we see here is this family. In this sort of space of family, we see this practice is secured, and sometimes it is, as we can see in this talk and film, of course, probably as Korean American, speaking English will be quite efficient, but sometimes also speaking Korean is also very efficient. So in a way, also when you, not only Korean, but when you have, two languages, the home language and English, whenever you have some sort of tricky situation or when you want to be private, it's so nice to have another language, because in a way that's somehow shelters you from the outer, environment, and you're able to talk with your friends or family without kind of any sort of danger or without any interruption. So in a way, this family, this Korean plays this role, as you can see, that the fact that they have Korean is such a great resource because they can, be able to gossip, for example, and they can talk about things that they share. So it kind of bonds them, brings solidarity or security and so many things. So in a way, somehow pragmatically, you can say, well, you just need to learn language. While you're living in UK, just speaking English is fine. But actually, it's not true. You need English in order to communicate with other people. But your home language, heritage language is so important because that actually gives you such space of freedom, space of solidarity, space of also this kind of safe place or shelter for you and your family and your friends. Next slide, please. And I think this is what I just said. So maybe next slide, please. Yeah, so this is again like what it shows how the two languages very much seamlessly mixed together. And shall we listen to?
조금 더 옳지. 하나, 둘, 치즈.
Koreans normally would say 하나, 둘, 1, 2, and kimchi. Because kimchi is Korean staple food. But they said 하나, 둘, cheese. So, this America, so 하나, 둘, cheese. I don't know whether you have something else like 하나, 둘, and another food. But yeah, so they replace kimchi with cheese, and this can another very example how so seamlessly mixed the two cultures and language. The next slide, please. And also this not only the language itself, also what we can see here from this slide on is how their Confucian value system. So somehow you working in these American immigrant families, their Confucian value very much strong, not only past, but now even in contemporary Korea society, the hierarchy and order, and respect elders, look after your parents. In this value system, when you go to different countries, you don't forget about all these things, but you carry this on. Even if you don't speak Korean, you speak English, and you're living with different people, this value system you carry through. But in a way, the way how you employ those value systems is very different from probably the way how you do that in Korea. So it's again like, very much in a hybrid, innovative way, but still you have that idea because that also will give them identity. So maybe you can listen to the next video clip. Watch the, so yeah, these are some of the things that actually the Minari took. And somehow these could be invisible if you don't really encounter Korean culture, but Chung, which is like affection, but again, very much in a way invisible. It's not very much explicit love, but it's something, how should I say, intimacy that very often unexpressed, warm feeling that not really expressed explicitly, but implicitly expressed. And the whole, which is filial piety, like this is kind of again, this is Korean American film, family in America, but still we see that this is very, very strong. The respect to your grandparents. Otherwise, if you don't respect your grandma, means 회초리, like this discipline stick. The boy will see, almost he was disciplined because of this respectful behavior towards his grandma. So and then hatu, which is again like we call it gusto. It's kind of Koreanized English word, but actually, yeah, it's we'll talk about this kind of a card, but Korean card game, but it has very negative nuances. So these actually cultural items also play a very important role in the film itself. Okay, next slide, please. Shall we watch the clip?
근데 아빠, 미국 채소를 심는 게 낫지 않을까요?
내년 미국으로 이민 오는 한국인.
He copies my grandma, so kind of like again, wonderful Minari. Somehow, like they, in a way, language is so important. In a way, the way how the two, grandma and David, could kind of be very much like misunderstanding each other. But through the ups and downs of life, they started to build the solidarity and relationship, and kind of they copied each other's language, and in a way their language, the way how they speak to each other, the choice of language itself, etc. It kind of shows how their relationship builds and grows through this film. And it's so yeah, this is the end of the talk, but it kind of shows again, like, you know, how this film itself shows the life between and beyond, that we can't just distinguish or define this is Korean and English, but it's kind of the mixing all together, border crossing in a way to be able to you know, to establish our own life and also relationship with others. But it kind of shows the importance of also at the same time keeping their language, heritage language, to be able to also, you know, build their own identity, and also within the group, within the family, to build a solidarity. So yeah, this is what we want to talk today. And maybe at the end of the slide, Lori, could you share the slide? Yeah, this is great. So we are having another talk in Oxford University about talking with the Darcy Packet translator of Parasite. So we'll talk about another film. So if you're interested, please do let us know. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to this talk. And any question, please let me know. I know we kind of almost close to time, but I can answer a few questions. Yeah, thank you. Maybe we can stop slide sharing now. I don't know how we can see people's question, or okay.
Can you see the chat bubble at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, one post about the confusion values. This is a movie set in the 80s. Such values dynamics still so strong among current immigrants in the US, given that also the Korean society has changed and is still changing very fast. Yes, I think this is, you know, again, as I said, like some part, you know, change it. So I think patriotic culture itself, like, you know, with the stick, maybe in Korea too, maybe you know, the maybe 20 years ago, so still we had this patriotic culture, like, you know, disciplining. But I think nowadays, kind of more we are, Korean society become westernized, so we're not like, you know, disciplining kids with stick. But I think the value system may be very similar, like, you know, being disrespectful to grandma still is very much like something that, you know, number one reason to be disciplined by your parents. So I think even if time changes, it's sort of very strong neo-Confucian value system in Joseon time still like carried on 1980s and in contemporary Korea, and until even now we see, you know, even many films and dramas and so on, we see like this very much crucial 5 relational dynamics, and those, you know, 3 bonds relational dynamics all still carried on in contemporary 21st century Korea too. So some sort of, you know, have changed it, but still the core message is still being carried out in contemporary society, in contemporary Korea. Thank you. Maybe one more question, or no question? It's another question. Do you think the generation gap is exacerbated by the cross-cultural experience as depicted in Minari? Probably, yeah, I don't know, like sort of like generation gap. Again, like this is 1980 film, so I think there's certain aspect which is kind of more, how should I say, they kind of, we can see the clear generation gap, but I think still now, even so, the first generation and second generation, the sort of like cultural value system, the conflict, I think still exists. The conflict that you observe from Grandma and David, I think that's kind of really good example that how, you know, they resolved beautifully, but the kind of the conflict like that could continue, and very much in immigrant families and Korean American family, and I think other families too, that, you know, the basically the old culture, or you know, like cultural heritage, and the new immigrant, you know, new sort of new culture, new language, and very often the two have a lot of conflicts. But I think what we see from this value cross-cultural conflicts is something that kind of maybe, you know, different, but sort of and different culture, different contexts. But I think this is something that probably quite close to reality. So I think this kind of shows a very good example how it could be in different generations. So intergenerational conflicts is very, I think, common in many immigrant families, or I don't think it's just US, but UK too. Like 2 generations, 3 generations. What do they share? They like one speaks only English, the other grandma only speaks Korean or Chinese. And what do they share? How they could be one and how they could be together. And I've been many years ago one cultural center and where ethnic minority cultural center, and where actually the 2 generations become one through like cultural activity like cooking, and that was very beautiful because they not really talk, but by making this dish together, they were able to kind of become one and were able to enjoy each other's company. And I thought that was very encouraging events that I saw. Okay, thank you very much. If you have more questions, please do send us emails and we'll reply to you. But otherwise, I hope you will have a very good evening and weekend. Thank you so much, and thank you, Lori, and thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think we just leave.
I guess so. Yeah. Thanks for that. That was really good.
This meeting. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Okay, bye.
I thank you. I normally, when I do, I also have people in the pens. I can see a little bit names, but it's quite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I do. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh.